Hello and welcome to this edition of Secrets for a Successful Life. I'm Sharon Benjamin. Thank you so much for joining us today. My guest today is Dr. Shirley Wachtel, who is an author of several books. She's also a professor of English at Middlesex Community College. And I'm so happy to have her with me today. Shirley, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's wonderful. So we're going to start out talking about your book, My Mother's Shoes.
Yes.
Tell us, first of all, the person who inspired you to finally go ahead and write this book.
Okay. This was a book that I've always had in my mind, I think from when I was a little girl, because, you know, my parents were Holocaust survivors, and I always loved to write, and I felt that I wanted to bring their story out there because I knew that it would be something that other families could relate to. It at its heart, it's a family story. And so I had befriended a housekeeper of mine who was a person. If you looked at the two of us, we couldn't have been more different. She was from the islands, and she had grown up in a big family, but her mother had gone through similar hardships to mine, and she lost a number of her children, and they suffered from disease and all kinds of a tough upbringing. And I would talk to her about my parents' story, and she said one day, she said, you know, the story you've been talking about, she said, my mother, your mother, they were so much alike. People have to know this.
So how long did this go on before you finally said, I'm going to do it?
I think what she did was she invited me to write it. And at that moment, I realized there would be an interest in the story. And plus, my mother at that point was dying. And I felt that I needed to unburden myself and just put out there the whole story. And I'm so grateful that she did inspire me in that way.
So My Mother's Shoes, tell us the significance of the shoes on the cover.
Okay, well, the shoes on the cover, and also there's, at the beginning of the book, there's a quote from the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, and the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And this, two reasons that books are really a theme that runs throughout the story. First of all, my mother loved shoes. And I found out when I was writing the book, after she passed away, that my grandfather sold shoes. And that was after I had named it this, actually. And secondly, shoes are a metaphor for our journey through life. We walk through different shoes throughout our lives, and the book begins with my mother losing a pair of shoes that she had back in Poland for a wedding, and this was just as the war was coming to the front and just before she was taken from her home. When she is in the camps, she exchanges those shoes for shoes that don't fit her, that are clogged. So this represents she's in a life that is not her own. It's not comfortable, but she has to make do with them. And then when she comes to America, she buys new shoes. They're not like the ones she had at home. They're certainly not like the ones she had in the camp, but she makes them work for her.
So what you mentioned earlier about the housekeeper that you befriended and how your similarities were, there were so many similarities, and you talk about the book could be about anybody's life, actually, in terms of going through life and the different changes and struggles, etc. You did an excellent job using language that puts the reader right there with the characters. How were you able to do that?
Well, I've always, I wanted to make it an immediacy. I wanted to take my feelings and just put it out there. For example, when my mother is dying and I'm visiting her, she doesn't really recognize me, and I lay down on the bed next to her and I see tears in her eyes, and I tried to be simple in my language and express what was happening at the time so people could relate to it, and I hope that everybody can relate to it.
Well, there were very vivid details, vivid details. In fact, I noticed that, when you talked about your mom's last moments,
Yes.
and the language that you used, I was there.
Yes.
I was in that room. I saw it. I saw those tears. I saw your, closing your eyes and just the whole picture.
Yeah.
A great job with doing that.
Thank you.
As I said, when you talked about those last moments, I was there. You have a poem on your blog that you published for Mother's Day.
Yes.
March 2014. I'm going to read a little bit of that and just let the audience hear some of that language. So, 2014, entitled Mother's Day. What do girls do once they've lost their mothers? Fill the cup. The cup needs filling. Who will care? Who will plug the emptiness, the sadness? Because you know that life goes on, but not for mothers who worry of belly aches and finals and 2-hour rides and almost jobs, choking sounds, which are words made when we've had a day that was, not quite. How have you filled your cup since your mother's passing?
Okay, well, obviously no one can take the place. If you have that relationship with your mom, as many do, nobody can take the place of a mother. So there's an emptiness, and I still feel it even to this day. And she, passed away. It's 20 years ago now, and so how I fill the cup is I take what she poured into me and I put it out towards my children. And I give them whatever I can, those lessons that I learned from her. And that to me is fulfilling, and I'm hoping that as they go on with their lives, they will also fill the cup.
And you have grandkids now.
And I do. And as a matter of fact, my one is 6.5, and the other's 2.5, Zoe and Emmy. And Zoe's Hebrew name is Blima, after my mother. Yes.
That's awesome. And one of the books, did you write about your grandkids? And
well, I don't write about them per se, but I have books for children.
Okay.
So Zoe and the Purple Elephant.
Yes.
And really the Purple Elephant is also a metaphor. She believes in it's a mythical figure, and she sees it as children will believe in imagination. But the Purple Elephant also has meaning to me, because that's the symbol for Alzheimer's, which my mother suffered with. So all the proceeds go to Alzheimer's.
I noticed that in the book you are alternating chapters of your point of view and your mother's point of view. What was the significance of that? And so when you share something, your mom is talking or your mom is giving information, and then
well, it's actually 3 different persona. The first is Blima, which my mother was known as Blima in the old country prior to and during the war, and of course my father called her Blima throughout. And then when she comes to America, of course, as many do, she kind of changes her name to Betty. I even changed the language, the dialogue. When we hear Blima speak, she's very well spoken, she's very articulate. Betty, not so much. And of course, my view is reflecting, taking it all in, and how I've seen things through my eyes.
So you award-winning professor at Middlesex Community College for several years.
It's 2017. I won the Faculty Scholar Award.
Yes, yes. And besides being an author of several books, you've done presentations in other places as well. Tell us about your presentation in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. Well, at the time, my son was working for the State Department, my eldest son, and he introduced me to someone, and they thought, oh, this would be a good idea for our library series. And I got to speak there, and also my son, it was very well received, and my son actually gave a copy of the book to Nikki Haley and to McMaster, and it's and I actually I'm very happy to say a portion of this book before the whole story came out was known as The Story of Blima, and I did meet Elie Wiesel, and I gave him my book, and he sent me a few months later a thank you note, so that I'm very proud of.
Excellent. And you, Shirley, you've done quite a bit with Holocaust awareness and celebrations.
Yes.
Tell us about some of those events.
Yes, okay. Well, I teach a course it's a Composition 2 course called Writing About Survival, and it started as an honors class. Now it's just a special topics class, but we discuss books like Night, we talk about my book, we talk about Hiroshima and different types of survival. But also I'm very active with different Holocaust books coming out and talking as a second generation. And my sons also are doing their part as third generation. During my sabbatical, I did some work with forming our new Holocaust and Humanities Center at the college. And I continue to work with them, bringing in speakers of all sorts.
Shirley, you have written some other books as well.
Yes.
Tell us about some of those.
Okay. Book I wrote after is The Music Makers, and that was also very well received. It got a good Kirkus review. That's a book of fiction, but it's about families living in upstate New York and some of their trials. It's also got a little bit of magic realism in it, and that's been going rather well. I've also written a book called This I Know. And by the way, Music Makers contains some material about the Lodz Ghetto, which my father was a part of before they sent him to Auschwitz. My other book, This I Know, it concerns a secret munitions factory in Israel during their war for independence that was underneath a laundry area and a baking area in a kibbutz. And I've written a book of poems, In the Mellow Light, and a book of short stories called 3 for $1. So I've been very busy.
Excellent, excellent. So how can people get in touch with you, Shirley? If they want to have you for a presentation, book signing,
Sure.
etc. How can they reach you?
I have a website. It's shirleywachtel.com, just one word, and very simple to get in touch with me, and I'd be glad to come out and speak. I enjoy that, and in times we live in now, it's more important that we learn to respect and love each other as human beings, no matter where we come from. And, that's the message I still try to spread.
Well, thank you so much, Shirley, for being my guest today on Secrets for a Successful Life. And you can contact us. Again, I'm Sharon Benjamin for Secrets for a Successful Life. Contact us on Facebook at Randall Sharon Benjamin, LinkedIn, Sharon Benjamin, Twitter, Sharon Benjamin, and go to our YouTube channel, Secrets for a Successful Life, Sharon Benjamin, and Secrets for a Successful Life, Randall and Sharon Benjamin. Again, Shirley, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience. See you next time for another edition of Secrets for a Successful Life.